Welcome to Bedtime Stories for Giants. Listening to a bedtime story is the best way to end your day. Now that your day is done and you are lying in your comfortable bed with your favorite blanket, favorite pillow, and maybe even your favorite stuffed animal, let's snuggle down for a story. This giant bedtime story I am about to tell you will help you transition from your busy day of learning and growing to a nice, peaceful night's rest. During the story, I will guide you into a relaxed state where you will feel safe to close your eyes and drift off. If at any point during my story your eyelids are too heavy to keep open, you can close them. If you just can't stay awake any longer, it's okay to let yourself drift off. This is a time to relax and have some quiet time. I hope you enjoy the story you are about to hear. The Giant Worm Story. Our story tonight begins at the time the giants are usually closing their eyes and drifting off to sleep. They did their whole bedtime routine. They ate their snack, they brushed their giant teeth, and even read their bedtime books. Dad Giant came into the room handing Luna, Bo, Apple, Peach Banana, and Ernie flashlights and said, "Time to go nightcrawler hunting." Because the giants had a compost pile for the garden, chickens to feed, and loved to go fishing, they needed lots of worms. Luna asked, "We're going nightcrawler hunting tonight?" Dad Giant answered, "Yes, because it rained all day, the nightcrawlers are poking their heads out of our wet soil. It will be easy to grab them and put them in our worm bucket." Bo said, "I'm going to put on my galoshes." Apple Peach Banana said, "I'm going to grab my own bucket." And Ernie said, "Wait for me, guys, I'm coming too." With firm grips on their flashlights, the four giant children followed their giant dad into the nice, cool evening air that felt heavy from the rain that had fallen all day. All the giant children followed their dad's lead of tiptoeing. Apple asked, "Why are we tiptoeing?" Dad whispered, "If the worms hear us coming from our giant footsteps, then they will bury themselves under the dirt and we won't be able to find them." When they reached the garden, Luna suggested, "Let's split up and we'll each take a corner of the garden." Bo said, "I'll start at the bottom." Each of the giant children found a different spot in the garden to start their worm hunting. Then Dad Giant whispered, "I'm going to count down from 3 quietly. Then we'll turn on our flashlights to see if we can spot any shiny nightcrawler heads peeking out of the ground." Ernie was so excited to worm hunt because it was his first time doing it. He turned his flashlight on before his dad even started counting, revealing hundreds of shiny worm heads poking out of the ground. Dad Giant whispered, "Wait, Ernie, let me count down so everyone can start looking at the same time." Ernie, feeling a bit embarrassed at his excitement, turned off his flashlight and waited. 3, 2, 1. Then, with a flash of light, all 4 flashlights were on the muddy garden. With quiet footsteps, Luna, Bo, Apple Peach Banana, and Ernie quietly snuck across the garden, grabbing all worms they could find. In order to grab the worms, they had to stick their thumb and pointer finger around where they saw the worm head and quickly, but carefully, as not to squeeze the worms' heads, pull them from their wormholes and out of the dirt. The worm buckets were filling with juicy, slimy nightcrawlers. At last, Dad Giant said, "I think this is enough worms for tonight." And as they were headed in, Apple Peach Banana said, "Wait, there's one more, and I think it's going to be a big one." She quickly took her thumb and pointer finger, pressed it around into the muddy dirt grabbed the nightcrawler's head and began pulling. She called for Dad Giant to come see. "Dad, I think it's stuck on something." Dad Giant came over to her and encouraged her to pull harder. At this point, Luna, Bo, and Ernie gathered around to watch. The worm she was pulling out was getting so long she had to fling it over her shoulder as she pulled more of its gigantic body up out of the earth. "That's the biggest worm I've ever seen," Dad Giant said, getting a bit excited about what was being pulled up out of the ground. Now that the worm was clearly going to be huge, Luna jumped in to help pull, and Bo began pulling, and Ernie began to pull. When the worm was completely out of the ground, they saw the worm was the length of all 4 giants put together. What's surprising wasn't only the size of the worm, my friends. The most astounding thing about this particular worm was that it could talk. That's right, it spoke. "What the worms say underground is true. Giants are real." "Well, of course we're real," replied Luna. "But how do you know we're giants? I thought worms couldn't see." "Well," began the giant worm, "people have tried to pull me out of the earth for decades, and no human, or bird for that matter, could even come close to getting me out until now. The only thing that could pull a giant worm like me out of the ground would be another giant." "Wow! How old are you then?" asked Bo. "Worms don't really bother with birthdays because we can't tell the difference between night and day to keep track. But I think I'm around 73 years old." "How did you get to be so giant?" Apple Peach Banana wanted to know. "Most worms get torn in half when they are being taken out of the ground. Then they have to regrow their tails back. I have never been torn apart, so instead of having to regrow my tail, I just keep growing." Bo chimed in. "Starfish regrow arms when they have one torn off too. No wonder you're so big. You never had to regrow a missing tail." "That is so cool," Luna told the worm. Dad Giant had an idea. "You are a really big worm. Would you like to live in our really big compost pile? It's full of all our garden scraps." Dad Giant thought this worm would make an excellent composter, as it could probably eat a lot of the compost food, turning it into a lot of healthy soil for the garden. "I've always dreamed of living in a compost pile. There's always delicious rotting food to eat there. Since I can't see and I'm too heavy for you giants to carry, go over to where the compost pile is and call my name. I will follow your voice to find it." "What is your name?" asked Apple. "My name is Wormosaurus. It's nice to meet you." "It's nice to meet you too. I'm Dad Giant. This is Luna, Bo, Apple Peach Banana, and Ernie." The giant kids were getting pretty sleepy at this point in the night. They wanted to make sure Wormosaurus made it to his new home. Luna, Bo, Apple Peach Banana, and Ernie walked over to the compost pile and started calling, "Wormosaurus! Wormosaurus!" The giant nightcrawler was a sight to see, dragging its gigantic belly across the lawn and then burrowing its head into the compost pile. "Well, Wormosaurus, you have an important job to do, and we have some important sleep to get," Dad Giant said. At that, the giant kids dragged themselves back to their house and into their beds. "I'd say that was a successful worm hunting night," Luna said. "I can't believe we found a gigantic worm tonight. That was so exciting," said Apple Peach Banana. I can't believe we didn't find any gummy worms, Ernie said, a bit disappointed. Oh, Ernie, gummy worms don't come from the dirt. They come from the candy store. The children all laughed, and as their laughter trailed off, they noticed their eyelids getting heavier, their breathing getting deeper, and their bodies relaxing into their beds. Good night. Now imagine you are lying on the beach, on the warm sand. The sun has been warming the sand all day. Your whole body is nice and warm. Your toes are covered with sand, and you can feel the weight of it pushing down on them. Your feet are covered in the warm, heavy sand. Your ankles are covered in the sand. Now your legs are covered in the sand. Even your hips are beneath the warm, heavy sand. Your stomach is weighted down under the sand. Feel your back sinking into the sand even deeper. Now your fingers are being drizzled with sand. It feels tingly and warm. Your hands are being buried by sand. Your arms are being buried by sand. Feel the warm sun on your face. You have to close your eyes because it's so bright. As your eyes are closed, you can hear the beach. You can hear the waves rolling in. You can hear faraway seagulls calling. You can hear tiny footsteps of the birds chittering by. You get a shell next to your ear.